why I disagree with Colin Herd's Herd Hierarchy for this NFL week. So every week, Colin puts out a rating for the NFL teams in the league. And in this week's rating, I found it really particularly interesting because he placed teams like Cincinnati in the top 5 and then moved teams like Buffalo outside the top 5. And to me, there's a lot of things in this analysis that just didn't make sense to me. So I want to run through a few of the teams, show you what I think and why I think they're the case and why the orders are a little off so you can kind of see what's going on with this episode. So number 1, for the first thing, Tennessee, the Titans, they look good. They should be in the top 10. They were the number 1 AFC seed last year, and they have been proving to people that they can play and hang with the best of the best. They beat the Denver Broncos quite well. They kept up with the Chiefs, even though they have a lot of starters out, and they've been a competitive team. So as far as I'm concerned, Tennessee's been looking great, and it makes sense. Dallas, not so much in my opinion. I think Dallas is a little overrated, but I will give them credit. They have Danny Quinn. He's a heck of a coordinator on the defensive side of things. They got Micah Parsons. He's a superstar, and Danny Quinn's proven. He's gone to the Super Bowl a couple times. He's made it work with the Seahawks in the past. So we know Danny Quinn is a great defensive coordinator. Mike McCarthy, I think everyone's still kind of deciding if he's really a good coach. But to be honest, I think we all know. Not amazing, blow your pants off kind of coach. Baltimore made sense being in the top 10. Buffalo moved back from where they were in like the top 2 or 3 initially to number 7. I thought that was kind of a weird change for him because when you think about it, Buffalo has one of the best quarterbacks, probably top 3, Josh Allen. He is a turnover machine. He's been giving it away. They're pretty dependent on him. But, you know, they lost their big coach, Brian Dable, and they are having to make adjustments, and he's still developing. So as far as I'm concerned, yes, they've shown some weakness. They are pretty heavily quarterback dependent on Josh Allen, but they can run. He can run at you. He's huge. He's got a big arm. They have weapons. And overall, they're a fairly well-coached team. So I do expect them to make a run, and they should stay in the top 5. I don't see them going into the top 7. I don't see them staying at 7. That just doesn't make sense to me. Colin keeps putting in the Cincinnati Bengals, and to be honest with you, I just don't see it. He's a big fan of Joe Burrow, but I think he's a big fan of Joe Burrow because Joe comes on his podcast. He's kind of buddies with him. And yes, I'm not saying Joe Burrow's not talented, but Zach Taylor, that team, they got their butts whooped by the Cleveland Browns, who aren't even that good. And they just ran right over them. They literally owned them in that game. And so putting them in the top 5, it doesn't make any sense because the Browns literally crushed them. And yes, the Browns have owned them for many seasons now over the recent years. But the reality is, if you watch that tape, you study it, there's a lot of weakness in this team, especially if you can run the ball. So any team that's going to be Super Bowl bound will have some sort of running game, and they're going to be able to go on top and push that game and take advantage of the weakness Cincinnati has. On top of the fact that they have a weak O-line, they constantly have struggles. Joe Burrow is constantly under pressure, and they're without their leading receiver, Jamar Chase. So that one kind of just seems like a bias from Colin Herd, but I could be wrong. The Vikings, 7-1, yeah, it's pretty amazing, but you also have to think about it. The game they just won, Jefferson was a freak. He pretty much just won that game for the entire team. So the catches he made, the effort that he made was just insane. So to say that they're up in the top 5, number 4, I think that's a little overrated. We already know Kirk Cousins, who he is, how he shrinks in big games, how his record is when it comes to prime time. That's probably going to carry on with him when he goes into these actual postseason games and has to perform. The pressure is going to mount. He's going to crumble. And yes, some of these players might bail him out, and they have a new coach who's offensive-minded, but overall, I just don't see it. And the rest is pretty straightforward. It's really about nailing the right fundamentals, and you've got the Chiefs, who are clearly looking like the best organization. The Eagles look really sharp, and you've got a lot of swagger with Jalen Hurts, and then obviously San Francisco has an incredible roster it's quite deep and talented with the teams. So yes, there is quite a bit there. I will say this, with San Francisco, I fear how Kyle Shanahan plays because he tends to push the team quite physically to play a very physical game, and that can affect the ability for them to stay healthy. You've seen it the last 3-4 years. just the fact that San Francisco isn't healthy when it comes down to the end of the season. And when that happens, because of the plays that he does, the heavy run game that he runs, how physical he coaches and runs that team, it tends to wear the players down and they don't make it to the end of the season. So again, these are just my takes. If you like this video, hit the subscribe button. This is all my NFL content and sports commentary. I'm excited about the season and I'm excited to keep adding content. If you like it, hit the like button, share, and subscribe. Thanks for the support. Talk to you soon.